American high schools seeking to learn more about adolescents and their orientation toward schooling. He published the results several years later in the Adolescent Society, The Social Life of the Teenager and Its Impact on Education. What Coleman discovered through his research was that the social, not the educational, dimension of the high school experience was paramount. When gathered together in the high school setting, teenagers occupied a separate and distinct social space largely immune from adult influence, and with this came a tendency to develop standards that lead away from those goals established by the larger society. This adolescent society, as Coleman named it, was an inevitable byproduct of the high school education system with the potential to decisively reshape the perspective and priorities of teenagers. More than a half-century later, the book continues to be a reference point for those who believe that herding teenagers together for several years in splendid isolation wasn't necessarily the wisest social experiment we've ever undertaken. The child of high school age, Coleman warned, is cut off from the rest of society, forced inward toward his own age group, made to carry out his whole social life with others his own age. With his fellows, he comes to constitute a small society, one that has its most important interactions within itself and maintains only a few threads of connection with the outside adult world. In this insular world of the adolescent society, teenage traits and behaviors were free to flourish largely unchecked and unchallenged. Coleman was mainly worried about the effects of this social cocooning on teenagers themselves. His principal concern, in other words, was with the impact of the modern adolescent experience on adolescence. My work focuses on another important impact of teen segregation. Spending critical formative years in a social setting dominated by like-minded peers not only shapes who we are as adolescents, it also promotes a more permanent etching of adolescent habits and characteristics, leading to their continued influence into the adult years. Some of our teenage ways may be cast aside as we move forward to adulthood, but an important residue remains, deeply ingrained in our personal inventory of embedded instincts, norms, and values. And so Coleman's phrase, adolescent society, no longer applies only to the realm of teenagers. It is also a fitting description of the larger society's gradual absorption of deep-seated adolescent qualities. 50 years on, a new understanding of adolescent society is in order, along with a new book to explain its origins and significance. We can glimpse the connection between these different conceptions of adolescent society in two classic television sitcoms. Happy Days was a show popular when I was young that depicted the lives of a group of typical American teens in the 1950s, offering a stylized portrayal of adolescent society around the time that Coleman was writing on the subject. Seinfeld, for the one or two of you who haven't heard, was set in the adult world of the late 20th century, following the daily activities and diversions of four 30-something adults living in New York City. The parallels between the shows are telling. In both cases, the action revolves around four fast friends who spend a lot of time hanging out in diners. Arnold's Burger Joint in the case of Richie Cunningham and his pals on Happy Days, Tom's Diner for Jerry Seinfeld and friends. There is a rough alignment of characters. Each features a rebel who bucks convention, Fonzie and Kramer, a nerd who wants nothing more than to be accepted and well-liked, Potsy and George, a smart aleck who delights in giving the nerd a hard time, Ralph Malph and Elaine, and an amiable lead character at the center of the action, Richie and Jerry. Their banter focuses on similar themes and preoccupations, relationships, social status, what they're going to do that weekend. They share a vague sense of being at an unsettled stage, trying to figure out who they really are and where they're going in life, though no one seems in any great rush to sort it all out. The overwhelming sense in both cases is a group of people mainly preoccupied with themselves and the present. If TV shows provide a window of sorts into the spirit of the times, the affinities between Happy Days and Seinfeld hint at the way that adolescent ways of thinking, acting, and being have seeped upward into adult life. The implications of this idea are many and varied. The adolescent fibers now embedded in the fabric of adulthood influence virtually every aspect of our lives. Our relationships with family, friends, neighbors, and strangers, our sense of connection and commitment to our communities and the larger world, the actions we undertake, or sometimes fail to undertake, as citizens in a democratic society, economic choices around work, leisure, and consumption, the social norms and values we endorse,